give us like on advice? I think I've asked like, an advice for an entrepreneur, but what could be like the last thing that you can say for anyone who's, trying to really make it?
Honestly, believe in yourself. Believe in yourself, aim high, surround yourself with the right people.
Yes.
Know when the right people are no longer the right people, and that's really difficult to do, but sometimes it has to be done. And don't stop working on yourself. So I think one of the things after the fear episode that I told you about, I started working with a coach. And it has changed me as an individual. It has changed my company. And interestingly, there are 5 of us that are college roommates, and we all got together. We try to get together once a month. It's really kind of more like once every 6 to 8 weeks because of everyone's schedule. But about maybe 3 years ago, I took a retreat to Bali. And it was the first time I really left my business. And not only did I leave my business, I was in a time zone that was really difficult to understand how to manage. And it, for me, started a journey of realizing how important taking care of yourself is in order to be able, literally put your own mask on first before you can put the other mask on to help others. And that was a pinnacle changing point for me. So working with a coach and being mindful of taking care of myself and getting enough sleep and trying to find the right foods to eat that are nourishing to me, it's like the number one thing you can do for yourself in order that you can keep doing all the other things you want to do.
That's so true. Yeah, definitely surround yourself with the right people, and people are going to motivate you.
Absolutely.
Put amazing food, drink a lot of water, be at a high,
Yeah.
If you're at a bar, you don't have to drink 5 drinks to, start talking to people. Just pretend like you have a cocktail and then talk to 50 people, But awesome. I'm going to open the floor for Q&A. So if anyone has any questions, feel free.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Andy. Like Scott, I'm a coach, business and life coach. I just want to acknowledge you. I can tell that you're a very conscious person in terms of yourself, your personal development. It doesn't surprise me that you work as a coach, and I think that's fantastic.
Thank you.
A lot of the clients that I work with, especially entrepreneurs, CEOs like yourself, Scott, you may see this too, kind of deal with the feeling of being alone a lot because you're at the top, and the whole idea of imposter syndrome of, shit, I'm up here, what the hell am I doing up here? My question is that something you ever dealt with? And if so, what is your advice to move through it? Because I see that a lot, and I imagine some of that may be in the room.
Yes. I certainly see it. I still sometimes will do crazy things like have rocks in my bra or wear a certain necklace or piece of jewelry to remind myself that I can be in the shoes that I'm in. Interestingly, we see it all of the time with aura, and I certainly see it even in placing women and their negotiation skills versus males. So it shows up in my world in a lot of different ways. I am a really strong advocate for mentorship. And I think that anyone can learn from a mentor. It can be a peer mentor. It can be someone that is further in their career. We have actually seen C-level executives want first or second year folks out of school to mentor them just to understand how to lead and manage a team that isn't their same age, right? Mm-hmm. So reverse mentoring. So I think mentorship is a way that people can find support in those situations. I will tell you, working with the coach, one of the greatest gifts that it gave me some tools, certainly to navigate, but it also was someone that challenged me because my team does not always challenge me. And what I mean by that is they don't always push the envelope in terms of, are you sure this is the right decision for the organization, right? So to the extent that you can build a board of advisors or have mentors that you can take these things to, yes. And the other thing is you have to be specific with your ask on that point, I would say. So if you want a mentor, you need to go to the mentor and say, I need mentorship. I'm working on this. Is this something that you would feel comfortable helping me with? But you have to be specific, right? It's like getting in a car and not knowing which direction you're going to go. You have to know if you're going to go north, south, east, or west, even if you pivot at some point.
Right.
So I think those are a couple strategies that, that are low cost.
Right.
People generally want to help. LinkedIn. You see someone that's doing something you want to be doing or is in an industry you want to be supporting, offer to buy them a cup of coffee.
Oh,
Most
I do that
people
all
will
the
say
time.
yes.
Can you help dispel the myth, because I have those conversations a lot. Is that something you occasionally will do for someone?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I have time blocked it now for myself because those asks sometimes can take time. But I time block it. So I'll say, I'll work on introductions for an hour or an hour and a half on Saturday or Sunday with my coffee. And I will every other Friday do a couple of non-work related networking meetings just to see if I can help whomever.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah,
Great
my pleasure.
question. And like, no one can ever say no to coffee. Like, seriously, coffee or donuts, I'm game. But
Never hurts to ask.
Yeah,
that
that's
is
true.
one of the
If you
greatest.
ask politely,
Yes.
how could
Yeah.
anyone ever fault?
Yes, one of my favorite pieces of advice is if you don't ask, you don't give someone the opportunity to say yes.
Right.
So I think that's beautiful.
Very true.
Can you go back to when you were speaking about how when you were working for a company that bought out your company?
Yes.
And what were some of the deciding factors for you to leave that company?
The number one deciding factor was that I wasn't a nice person anymore. I didn't like, I would look at myself in the mirror and I didn't feel like myself anymore. And I didn't want to keep doing that. And the wake up call actually came in the form of a car accident. That was actually that was the actual reason I did it, but it was like the universe had to intercede because I wasn't taking action, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Thankfully, I was fine. Car was demolished. I walked away with crutches and some bumps and bruises, but I was fine. But I literally almost quit the next day. And the gentleman I worked for, who actually now works for me, would not let me because I wasn't really in the right emotional headspace to do it. He drove me home from the office. I had to go into the office, and I had alligator tears, like the kind where you're like this, you can't even breathe. And God bless him, he just drove me home. He got me into my house because I was on crutches, and I fell sound asleep. I woke up and incorporated, and that was in May of 2011. And I actually resigned in July and started my company in July.
Wow. Great question. Thank you. Yeah.
What are some things that you wish you would have known that you didn't?
So I am a little unique in that I had started another IT recruiting firm, so I had been through a lot of what I started on my own doing. I think the greatest source of stress for me was figuring out the financials. So I am not an accountant by trade. And I also didn't realize at the time how difficult, and it's changed. We were talking a little bit about the access to currency right now is different than it was 8-9 years ago. But I didn't realize how difficult it was to be able to find a bank that would lend to me. And I didn't understand that process because I had never gone through it before. So if you are anywhere in the process, build relationships with bankers. Start now, even if you do not need the money now, even if you don't think you're going to need the money now, start now. They can educate you in ways that will be helpful. And they can also start helping you know what you need to have in place to make the business look like a good client to a bank. And there are factors in there that they look for. And so I really hadn't had any insight into that Thankfully, I was introduced to someone who became, a really trusted advisor to me, which was wonderful. I wish I would have started the conversations earlier, though.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, I'm Cameron. I work in the oil and gas industry, but I'm interested in your goals and visions. So as your companies have grown in size, how have you made sure your goals are achievable, but also are pushing you to be better and greater?
Yeah. So I am someone that has practiced for a good part of my life writing goals. So doing it for myself and my business has kind of been a natural activity. Although I will tell the coaches in the room that we did SMART goals last year, and I was like, no SMART goals this year. I'm going to do goals differently. And someone had made a recommendation of a book. It's called The Code. I'm pretty sure is what it's called. And it's a book written by a surfer, actually. And he talks about the code that he developed, and he puts them in I will statements. So I'm writing them as I will statements or we will statements versus SMART goals. Well, do you know what ended up happening? It's a SMART goal. It basically is a SMART goal. It just is in McCann McCann's vernacular this year that couldn't do it the other way. And all of a sudden, when I wrote this whole thing out and had it all done, and I showed my coach, she's like, "Oh, do you notice anything?" And I was like, I looked at it. I'm like, "It's yes." And I'm like, "Okay, I did it. I just couldn't do it. Like last year, I put the whole SMA. Or I couldn't do it. Code. It's see me after. I'll look on my phone and tell you. But I don't have my phone with me. It's a great read. If you Google surfer code and the power of I will statements or whatever, you'll find it on Amazon. So it's been an organic process. I look down literally and I forecast out what our numbers have been. I forecast. Has my staff changed at all? So if my staff hasn't changed at all, probably the revenue goal is going to not change as dramatically unless we do something really dramatically different, right? We're introducing a new service line and we think we can upsell in a client, or we have a new partner that we're working with. So I look at all of those factors to figure out what is really doable. I also go to my team and ask them, what can you do? Because then they have some skin in the game as well. And it's not just me dictating, here's the number, but them saying, this is what I think I can do this year, and then kind of collating that all together. I always do it first, so I have an idea in my head, but then it makes it easier. It's not like I'm just saying here, and they look at it and they have no idea how they're gonna do it, right? So that's how I generally do it. I don't necessarily follow a process per se, but these are just some of the things that I look at. Does that answer your question? Okay.
I'm gonna start doing that. Is it just like I will or I am?
I will.
I am the
You could,
best.
yeah.
All right, cool.
So Megan, one thing that's great about entrepreneurs is they give themselves permission to fail. So can you give us an example of some area that you've really failed and pick yourself up again?
Yeah.
What it meant to you
Yeah.
in your career?
So I think the whole notion of almost wanting to close my business because I thought we were failing was a big eye-opening way for me to change my mindset about things, and that could have been a bigger failure than it was, but for me it was a big learning. Last year we had our best year yet, and we set out at the beginning of the year with a certain number for executive search, and we didn't even go close to that number. We didn't do it. And you know why? We didn't follow the plan. We didn't follow the plan, so we didn't make the number. Now, I could have gotten upset that we didn't follow the plan, but we still had a great year. So you just kind of have to look at it as objectively as possible as you go, right? And I think, I'll say that I also will say that we have done partnership arrangements over the years that have served us really well, and then you have to reevaluate because there was a situation last year that hurt us. Thankfully, it didn't hurt us in a way that was negative, but if I look back in our activity and how we approached that partnership, it was not a good use of my team's time. And so I think kind of always evaluating those things is really important. And the numbers don't lie, right? That's the other thing. I've turned in probably since I started working with the coach, actually, as I articulated out loud, to looking at the numbers more and being in the fact versus the fiction. I am very intuitive. It has made me very successful in terms of hiring. I get a good feeling about something, and especially with like that matchmaking activity, I can just tell like this person is going to work here, and then that's part of a gift that I have. But sometimes you need to look at the numbers, right? You can have the intuition, but you need to really look at it to make certain that it matches, to make certain you're making the right decisions.
We're gonna do maybe last question.
I have a question. So as in this day and age, a lot of organizations are, when they look to partner, they look at the organization's morals and is it in alignment with their own morals. So for you, who a vital part of your position in your organization is pairing individuals with these organizations, have there been a time when you decided not to work with an organization or a partner or even an individual because they weren't in line with your morals or your company's morals?
I'm sure it has happened certainly with individuals. Like there's just not alignment, whether it be for people I'm hiring or just even people that we're interviewing for clients, that it just doesn't feel right. Part of my job is also to make certain that there's alignment, right? That cultural alignment for candidates with clients that we're supporting and vice versa. I have fired us from clients, yes. And that is, maybe that's another fail conversation with yourself, right? That you look down and you think this partnership, this client that is fantastic, but they're not the right client for you because they don't embrace the same values or something about the process doesn't work well for you. It's hard to say no to business, but I do say no to business because there are environments that we aren't well equipped to support. Just, we've tried it and it hasn't worked, and I think the definition of insanity is continuing to hit your head against the wall and being on the wheel. And so I try to be really mindful of that. And I'll tell you, this is one thing that my team does well. They will say, wait, I thought you said, and I have to have a good, compelling story why I'm saying yes to something if it's something in the past that has not worked for us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
being
having
here.
me.
Seriously, that was awesome. Well, yeah, this is the part where we keep networking, exchange cards, and drink all the booze if there's any left. So I don't know. Thank you so much, guys, for coming in. And yeah, thanks.